Okay, great. She's ready. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. It is Wednesday evening, Wealthy Wednesday. And as you know, this is our bonus call. We're on day 3 of the Money Attraction Challenge, 5 days. It's been interesting, huh? So if you're watching, let me know that you're on live. Say hi. You can see I have a guest because this is part 2 of what we did this morning where we talked about money traumas. So if you were on live, can you let me know that you did that? Let me know that you were watching and that you're here. Okay, great. So I see we've got a couple of views and we're going to start talking about this. So this is 2 parts. This morning, I brought to your awareness the 13 different experiences that I notice people have related to money and trauma. And I was explaining that my intention earlier was just for you to come to the awareness, oh my goodness, I've had some major experiences that are traumatic that involved money, kind of like turning the light switch on for you so you can see and understand, oh, this is what's playing out. This is what's playing out in my finances and my business and my relationship with money, the way I really am blocking and resisting. Because, you know, if you have had a traumatic experience with anything, you don't want that thing coming at you anymore. You don't want it in your life. And energetically, you're going to be kind of doing like that. So, all right, I see Lisa, Catherine, we have friends, Michele.
Is that Lisa Lewis? Because she posted a very interesting question in the Facebook group.
It is Lisa Lewis. Yes, it is. All right, guys. So you can see I have an incredible guest with me tonight, Michele. And those of you that follow me, hi, Dixie. Those of you that follow me on Facebook and you've been watching the Facebook Lives that I do Monday morning, you know I've had Michele on a few times. And I recently had her come speak at our annual manifesting event. And the reason I do that, you notice I'm very selective in who I've invited and positioned as an expert here. And the reason I really do revere Michele and the work that she does is that in my own mentoring with people around money, one of the things that I've come to realize, and even in my own life, is this role of trauma. And the way that, you know, when you've had a major traumatic experience of any kind, but especially related to money, because that's something that we are trying to attract more of. And then we have this thing, it's like somebody said it best, right? Like your gas, 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake. You're like doing like this all the time. And that gets tiring, frustrating, all those things. So I recognize that I really, you know, needed to bring in an expert on this. And Michele and I have this little joke between us that when I first met her and she talked about trauma and being a trauma expert, I remember kind of like turning my nose up and going, well, I don't have any trauma.
And you remember what you also said? You said entrepreneurs don't use that word.
Oh, yeah. Entrepreneurs.
Okay, all right. I'm an
entrepreneur. Like entrepreneurs, you know us. We got it together. We're out there in the battlefield. We don't talk about trauma. Come on. Right. Whoa. Well, as you can tell, I had 13 different ones. So let me just ask you to type, like, if you were on earlier and you recognize that you had one, even just one, don't need you to tell me how many, but even if you just had one, can you just like say, yes, I don't know, type yes. Let me know that you watched earlier, that you were in, and you can acknowledge that you had one. And now I want to say to you, before I allow Michele to share, yay, I see lots and lots and lots of people now joining us. We've obviously shared everywhere because our counts are going up. So, and I know, Hyacinth, you're in the UK, it's like midnight for you or something, and you're watching. So welcome that you're all here. So I want to tell you, obviously, if you've been watching the lives every day, you know that I've been inviting people to have conversations with us. And we've been having some interesting conversations with people. Literally the thing that moves me the most, especially today, were the conversations that I got to participate in when people went, wow, when you listed those things, those traumatic experiences, I was floored at how many I had. And it makes people, once you're aware, it makes you go, wow. And here's this thing I want so much more of so badly. I really need to figure this out. So I'm super excited that we have the kind of experts that we've brought in. And you obviously, you can tell, and I'm going to be totally transparent with you because that's me, is that we are inviting people into a process that we have that creates results financially, right? So that's what we're doing here is I'm sharing all my knowledge, wisdom, and this ends after 5 days. And then what? How are you going to be supported to make a lasting change in your financial reality and have it last forever, to create, something new for you? So we've been inviting, when we have these calls, we've been inviting people into our next program. And those of you that saw Yvette on Monday, Yvette talked about energy alignment. That's her thing, the energy alignment method. And so Yvette is going to be one of the master teachers in our program. We also have another master teacher that has not been featured during the challenge. That's Kezia Luckett, and she deals with childhood work. And she's helped me through some stuff. Wow, we'll have to have a whole other call for me to tell you about that. But if you know a lot of this stuff is rooted in your the beginning, early stages of your life, and how you have this story that you keep telling over and over and over again, then Kezia's help is going to really support you as part of our program. And then we now have tonight Michele, who's going to be our contributor on the trauma piece, because I'm sure after today you recognize, holy moly, wow, this is big and heavy. And so what would it be like to have Yvette helping you with the energy, right? Kezia helping you with the childhood stuff, Michele helping you with the trauma, Diane and I in your life. Like, if you've been loving, what are we on, 3 days of this? If you've been loving 3 days of having us in your life, can you begin to imagine 120 days of me and Diane in your life? If you like that, give me a thumbs up. If you're starting to like the idea of that, I want you to let me know. Give me a thumbs up or a like. And that's really, I want you to know, as we're continuing to do these days, that's where we're going, right? Ultimately, this challenge, we're going to open your eyes up. We're going to show you a lot of things. It's going to make you understand what's gotten in your way. And then we're going to support you in changing it forever. And that's what we're going to be inviting you to. So if you're like, I want that, Tasha. I want all these people you've been bringing on. I want you and Diane. Go ahead and type #success right now. #success. So I know you are one of the people who are willing to take this time right now to create change for the rest of your life. If that's you, #success. All right, I'm going to be watching because I want to see which ones of you are really serious. You're beyond the fun and games. You've been taking this to heart, and there's no time like the present. I got to do this now, right? So if that's you, #success. I love it. All right. So without further ado, Michele, we have everyone here, I think, that we're going to have tonight. And if you're watching the replay, #replay. So Michele and I know that you are on. And I'm really just going to turn this over to her. I've talked a lot, I think.
Actually, I like when you talk, because this is a conversation. So I think really important and interesting things from the conversation that you had with Yvette about energy the other day, which I really loved her whole approach to what it means to be able to move and align that kind of energy, to your conversation with Diane yesterday and her sharing her story about how she thrived in the last economic downturn versus your struggle to survive that. A neat, dichotomy, and really such a great snapshot of the two opportunities we have in the middle of a trauma. Diane just went to work visioning, thinking the right thoughts and taking actions, and she just saw this great exponential increase in her thriving. And you took a different path, which was less active, less proactive. And that's a really great place, I think, for us to begin. So I just want to thank you, Tasha, for sharing the way that you do, because I think that's it's real, right? And I think this kind of stuff is hard to talk about. And if we can't be honest here in this community and really get to the core of it, then there's no point in talking about it at all.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you.
It's up to you.
Thank you. So, one of the places that I would love for you to start is, take us back to like when you met me and the definition of trauma, because there might be some people even after today going, trauma, I don't know if I've had a major traumatic experience.
Right. Well, so that's a great place to begin. So let's just start with just a basic little pop quiz.
Okay.
And so I like to start here because it just really, we can all step forward together. So if you have, and I'm talking to all of you, every single one of you who is watching right now, and on the replay, just hashtag it. Here's the question. It's just a 1-question pop quiz, and you're all going to pass. So pressure's off. No fear of traumatic pop quiz failure. But if you have ever had an experience that feels less than good, just put a yes in the comments.
All right.
Ever had an experience that feels or felt at the time less than good?
I love that I get to do this. There's my big yes.
And I mean, we don't all have to look far, right? Because we're sort of living through, as Sebastian said, something really important in history, and it does not feel good at all. So if we just look to today, that would work. But if you look over your life, think of all the experiences you've ever had. Has there been more than one that felt less than good? Maybe you had 4 or 10 or 30. So if that's you, put a number in the comments. So that's the pop quiz. It's that one question. And I can see, oh, hey, Diane, thank you for the love. But I can see, the answer is yes, 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 with like 5 S's. Exactly. Because here's the thing. The baseline definition of trauma is any experience that feels less than good. So if you did not put a yes in the comments, then you were just holding back and not being as real as you could show up to be today, because there is not a single person on the planet who would be able to write no, except maybe, no, I'm not even sure that a newborn infant would be able to write no, because I think birth can be traumatic. So
that they come out.
And like with the journey to get here at all, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
So we're sort of born trauma survivors in that respect. So and this is not my definition, this is the psychological baseline for trauma, any experience that feels less than good. So if we start from there, we are all of us, every single one of us in this moment, in this program, in this universe, we are all trauma survivors. And the reason that it's important to start there is because, Tasha, that gets back to our very first conversation, and you said, I don't have trauma. And when I said to you, well, don't any entrepreneurs talk about this stuff? And she said, no, nobody uses that word. And I thought, okay, all right, well, that was no, don't even cover your face, because you know why, Tasha? I wasn't raised to understand trauma at all. And so, I loved Donna Riley's share in your video this morning, and she talks about having a near-death experience at the age of 12. That happened to me at the age of 13, and nobody helped me contextualize where I went, what I experienced when I was there, and the extreme trauma of having to come back and to be here. And that kicked off a disaster of a career for me because I came back. So my trauma is trauma with a big T, right? Like some big life-altering trauma that changes how you see yourself, others, and the world. But there's also little t trauma, those little things that don't go the way that we want them to or the way that we expected them to. It's one of the main reasons why I hate expectations. When we have expectations, we become rigid, and that's a hallmark of trauma survivorship. But we want to be thrivers, not survivors. We want to be people who are flexible, and flexibility is the land of intentions, right? We hold an intention for something, but not exactly the vision of how it's going to happen.
Right.
So we can flex, right? You must teach that in your program, right?
Yeah, we call it no attachment, right? Like you create the intention and the desire, you put it out there, but there's no like attachment as to how it comes, when it comes, what it looks like. It needs to fit in this box. It's just like I'm open to receive. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the main problem is that we're not taught any of this. So after my main big trauma, big T trauma, and then all the little T traumas that we all experience when something doesn't go the way we expected, or someone disappoints us, or we lose someone or something that was meaningful to us, or we get embarrassed or ashamed. You talked about shame in the video this morning. Any of those things are little T traumas. They don't wreck your life in that moment or the whole trajectory per se, but it's uncomfortable. It feels less than good. And so it's a little T trauma.
Yeah.
But none of us are taught to understand what that does to us. And essentially, to me, the main problem with trauma, as I just moved this pop-up box that popped up into my screen. Thank you, Zoom, for letting me know there's yet another security update. Nobody teaches us how to understand and contextualize the trauma that occurs for us. So for me, for example, I came out of that trauma and I felt I did not deserve to survive. That was my big aha after my trauma. I don't deserve to be here. I was just lucky that I was saved. And I'm worthless because I don't deserve to be here. And what happens to your money issues when you don't think you deserve to even breathe? So you know my story, Tasha, and I'll just share for a second. But over the next, I graduated college. But after that, my life was a disaster. I could not build a career. I could not build.
Michele, just because we have so many new people who are new to our community, so they've never even heard you on other lives. If you could just share a little bit about your traumatic experience, your near-death experience.
Oh, for sure. So 13 years old, a doctor just did not look at my chart. He was busy, didn't have a lot of time, whatever it was. I had a run-of-the-mill infection. He prescribed a run-of-the-mill antibiotic, and I had anything but the run-of-the-mill reaction to it. I was allergic to it. My body could not metabolize it. That's what an allergy means with a medication. And it turned me into a full body burn victim. The medication literally burned its way out of me head to toe. I was in a quarantined hospital burn unit room in New York City for weeks and weeks. And during that experience, my near-death experience occurred. I went to the other side. My mother brought me back. And life was never the same. That's the bottom line version, the quick down and dirty version. But because and this is what happens in trauma, we get these distorted beliefs. Tasha, you were sharing this morning about something that happened to you as a little girl that was tied to your money beliefs, your money trauma. And that's what happens. We move through a traumatic experience distorted by our brain chemistry and the function of our brain during that experience. So without going all scientific nerdy on you, but I've been a neuroscience writer for a long time. I've studied the brain a lot and what the brain does to us during and after trauma. And parts of the brain actually shut down during trauma. The parts that are supposed to consolidate memory. So you have a memory, it's in your short term. And it's supposed to go out of your hippocampus, which is this little part of your inner brain, and be placed in your prefrontal cortex, which is, the outer part of your brain. That's where your long-term storage is. That doesn't happen during major trauma. And especially if you've had a lot of traumas, and then you might have a little T trauma that triggers all the other traumas. So that little T trauma may not have been so bad, but it triggers a neural chain of all the other traumas. Now you're activating all of those memories. So either you're overactivating or you're not consolidating. So something feels like it's still happening, even though it's years ago. So all of which is to say that then what happens is we carry the belief system that we created during this weird hijacked brain time. So we go through a trauma, we've got too much adrenaline, too much cortisol. The amygdala, which is your fear center, is overfiring. Your hippocampus, which is supposed to consolidate and store your memories, is underfiring. So everything feels bigger and larger than life. And in that fight, flight, or freeze, which you've all heard about, you are creating a belief system tied to that experience that lacks proper brain chemistry, proper physiological homeostasis, and also proper context and perspective from an emotional and mental and even spiritual realm. You put all of that together, we walk out of these traumatic experiences and our heads are spinning, and the belief systems that we end up with are out of whack completely with the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So tying that to today, when I went through the list of 13, and that's just, I tell people all the time, look, I didn't read a book and come up with the 13. It's my own life, right? I've been through all 13 of those. And in mentoring our clients, I've seen that many, if not most of them, have either had one or several or all of the 13. And I'm sure there's a lot more. So just imagine, like Michelle's saying, right? I listed 13 today, and several of you had many of the 13. Or even if you had one, it might not have been a little T one, it might have been a big T trauma. That one, like I had a client who her thing was when her father, who she loved, passed away. Trauma that got created, love and harmony was just gone from her life, and people were attacking her and things. And it was just one on the list, but it was major trauma. And so as Michelle, what I'm getting from Michelle's really super deep scientific explanation of what happened is like, you come out of that and you've like, to use layman's terms, you've lost it, and you have some beliefs that are just like, whew, and they're around this major part of life, which is money, right? So, oh my gosh, which is why I love listening. You love listening to me. I love listening to you.
It's why it works. And to add on to what you were just saying, you've lost it. You've lost what is it? Well, we all know you've lost it means you've lost your mind. But here also, you've lost your perspective, because when you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, the brain narrows your scope of vision. Literally, this is not metaphorical. The brain narrows your focus and your ability to see. It stops seeing all of the periphery. You can't see me, but my hands are on like either side. But it stops seeing the periphery, because you do not need to know what's on the periphery. You just need to know where that tiger is coming at you, and that's all you need to know. So you literally cannot see the whole context from a physical perspective. Now take that into the metaphorical. You also can't see it in an emotional perspective, a spiritual perspective, or a mental perspective either. We see that tiny snapshot. And if you think back to your trauma or traumas, what you will remember, and I wrote about this in my first book before I learned all this brain science stuff, when I wrote a memoir of trauma and recovery, and I was writing about how I struggled with this. And then later I understood the science. So for any of you who recognize this, please just love the science with me as much as I do, because we struggle with particular moments, right? If you think back to your trauma, Tasha, it's not like the whole experience. There's like one really big moment, right? Or maybe two really big moments that stand out. It's not the whole trauma itself.
Right.
The reason for that is that the brain hardwires and then fires and fires and fires. So like think of like pumping iron in the gym. The more the brain fires neural pathways, the stronger they become, the quicker they go the next time. Your brain is designed to work that way for your benefit. So the most intense emotional moments are the moments that get the most hardwired in. The most intense emotional moments are the moments that get the most hardwired in. Those become the moments that define the beliefs that you carry out of there. Those
Mhm.
beliefs become what defines who you are and how you see yourself, others, and the world.
Yeah.
Now, it all starts to open up when you start understanding that kind of chain, right?
Yeah.
Not one and done and the trauma's over and you just go on. You are physiologically imprinted. Every cell has memory. So think about that. You've got trillions of cells. Every little cell is carrying a memory of that trauma, even when you're not thinking about it. It's why the body carries trauma as well as it does. So
Mm.
so we all carry all of that then into every area of our life. And if we're just going to hone it in now and talk about money, I carried my lack of being worthy to survive, which was based on one of those big, intense trauma moments. And I'll just won't go into all the details of that, but because of certain things that happened, I believed I didn't deserve to survive. And I couldn't talk about that. Nobody around me was able to contextualize, everyone talks about trauma now, but that was 1981. Nobody was talking about kids and trauma then.
Right.
And my mom did her best. She knew I needed a therapist, but she would drag me from one therapist to another. And being the good adolescent trauma survivor that I was, I refused to speak. I felt like if I was going to talk about it, something in me would break and I would not be okay. So for 17 years, I would not talk about what had happened. So I just carried all of these distorted beliefs right into adulthood and right into the area of how do I make money. I didn't allow myself to spend money. I lived paycheck to paycheck in this tiny little teeny weeny studio on the upper west side of Manhattan that I shared with a roommate. So the two of us, head to head in our little twin beds in this tiny little studio. And I just bounced from job to job to job because I would get into a job, I'd get bored with it, I'd find another job. And I shared at the manifesting event, I'm a powerful manifester. So if I get bored with a job and I want another one, another good opportunity will come. But because I didn't believe I deserved good opportunities, I would leave it. I wouldn't build a career because I didn't deserve to have money in the bank. So this went on, 15 different years, 8 jobs in 7 different industries. And some of that, you talked about self-sabotage this morning. And that is so key because every time I would get a job I worked in advertising, I worked in finance, I worked in lucrative industries. But just when I would start accruing money and feeling like everything was okay, I would completely sabotage it. And then I would have to take time off. I'd have some kind of meltdown and I'd have to move back home with my parents. It was a mess. This went on year after year after year.
So we got a lot of comments and people are understanding. And you just did this to me with something you just said that I really want to pause and encapsulate actually, because, I talk a lot about deservingness and there's one meme that I post all the time. Do you deserve to be rich? And I love everybody typing, I deserve to be rich. Yes, I do. And thumbs up and hearts. So having heard Michele's story, having gone through the 13, traumatic experiences that I listed this morning related to money, let's just look in my eyes and let's just keep it real right now. And I literally want you to type this question, not the answer to the question. All I want you to do is type the question in a reflective state, like really be asking yourself this question. Looking back at the traumatic experiences that you had, whatever you listed, all 13, 1, 10, 5, whatever it was, we've all had some trauma with money. Hearing Michele's story about how her trauma, right, created this, I'm not worth it and I don't deserve to be alive, let alone deserve money. I know I can relate. I'm not worthy of it. I want you all to type, do I deserve to be rich? I want every single, there shows that there is almost 100 of you watching live, and those of you watching the replay, I want you to type it, not from the let me type what Tasha said, but I want you to type it because I want it to sink deep into your soul, your spirit, your energy field. That question, I want you to be really aware of connecting the dots between the trauma that you've had and look at, am I really deserving? Do I really believe truly, not just a like and a love on Facebook, but do I really believe I deserve to be rich?
Mm.
All right, let's do that. All right, Michele.
That's a really good pause.
Yeah.
Because I think we can get so caught up in the diagnosis of the problem, which is great, so necessary. And the understanding of how we got here and recognizing the symptoms and all of that is really important. But where I feel a lot falls short is that we do all of that and then we start trying to apply Band-Aids. And the reason that this stuff doesn't get healed is because there is nothing healing it under the Band-Aid. No, if you put a Band-Aid over a cut and you don't look at it, okay, you don't see that it's festering. You don't see that an infection is growing. And until that gangrene line starts going up your limb out from under the Band-Aid, you do not pay attention even to that it hurts, because we can numb ourselves to the pain that's continuing. So the beauty, Tasha, of what you're doing, you and Diane in the program of calling this stuff out and helping people work through it, that's what needs to be done. It's not enough to say, oh, I have beliefs that need to change. That's not enough. It's not enough to say, oh, I can pinpoint when this started. Okay, that's great. But we all get so caught up in that stuff that it's easy to, that's surface stuff. That's superficial, like, well, I've looked at it. Now I can move on.
Right.
And that's not enough.
No.
That's not enough. So let's start talking about what it really means to heal. And you can share some of, what you did with Donna, because that was a great story. And I still don't know all the details from your conversation this morning. From my perspective, trauma, in addition to all the things we've already talked about, what it really does, the real problem with trauma is it's an identity crisis. We come through trauma and we no longer know who we are in a way that is certain and sure and that feels good. And the funny part of this is, maybe when I was 18 or 19, so that would have been 5 or 6 years after my trauma, I had PTSD symptoms that were undiagnosed. So I was already like 6 shades of crazy, but sane enough to know that something was wrong with me, like who I was. My identity was not okay. And I started researching identity from the age of 18 or 19 until 39. So 20 years of researching identity for what? I did not ever understand why until I was in the very end of my trauma recovery and nothing was working. And I just stopped working with everybody. I had a therapist. I had like 11 different modalities that I was working with. And I just stopped it all. And I said, this isn't working. And I just sort of secluded myself. I moved from New York City to a small beach town in Florida near Tasha. And I sat on the beach and I read all of my identity notes, and I understood what was wrong. Is I just had this identity crisis. I could not see myself as anything except a trauma survivor. And I came to understand that in order to really thrive and to succeed and to earn and to be and to do and to have, I needed to be able to define myself some other way. Now, sometimes, we're really clear that trauma is the thing that defines us, but other times, so many little t traumas happen that we don't even realize that they've crept in, and like some kind of Stephen King ooze, they just ooze into an entire identity until you don't see yourself anymore with any clarity that feels good. Yeah. So the way that I ended up really, really structuring the tail end and the success of my recovery process was all of the modalities that I was using, plus the identity piece. And I was able to sort of pull it all together. And that's where I really love to do the work. It's where I specialize with all my work now, because if you cannot change the way you see yourself, then you can change your beliefs and change your actions and your intentions and your behaviors, but you're always going to be at some fundamental level, you're going to be faking it. You have got to change how you see yourself, so that that then goes up and expands into the beliefs changed and the actions taken and the intentions put out there. You have to come from that place of the true you. I had a client in my office this morning that her eyes just got so big, and she said, Michele, I've never been the true me.
Wow.
And it was, a moment that we just had to like stop and have reverence for, because she's 62. And trauma from the time she was a little kid. And her discovering who that is changing everything. And when you discover who you are, imagine what it's like to be the true you, the really powerful you, and step into what you want to do with money, where you're not stepping forward carrying these old beliefs and these old ways of looking at yourself, but you're stepping forward with all of your power and saying, this is what I want.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a genius, and I surround myself with amazing people like that.
Learn, right?
Oh my gosh. And this is what Donna talked about this morning. When she shared, she was like, I had the moment where I reconnected to my childlike self. That was my true self, full of dreams and like, I can take on the world. I can do anything. Like the true us. You're wondering how to heal this trauma. Like Michele, what I'm hearing Michele is saying is you've got to get back to the identity that is truly you, like the true you. And all the trauma and all the stuff has covered that up so much that when we go to do this money work, if you're still like, if that's really still the place that you're living from and putting out to the world, maybe now you understand why it's been so difficult. Maybe now you do. So Michele, we could go on forever. We're at 10 minutes and everyone is like loving all of this, which I love. Can you share just a little tidbit for the people who step forward and join our program when we invite, what your masterclass is going to be about? Just a little bit, like give them a little teaser so they know we're going to really get to the beginning stages of processing this for you.
Right. So I think the first place, like all right, thinking too many thoughts at once because there's so much fun stuff to do here. I'll rein myself in, Michele. I'll rein it in. Two things, because I think it's really important to be able to I see the comments. You're welcome, Jamie. I'm so glad this is really helping all of you, because this is the beginning of starting to change your identity. If you are writing into the comments or just quietly processing this for yourself and saying, yes, I get this. This explains so much. I feel this. I understand it. And I'm holding it in. Soak it in. Be the sponge. And then figure out two things. Number one, here's the hardest thing. After a trauma, we change, right? Every experience changes us. This is what we forget. You were an infant once, and without even thinking of it, you became a toddler. And without thinking about it, you became a child. And without thinking about it, you became an adolescent. You didn't look at your adolescent self and say, oh my God, what do I do now? No, you didn't. And you didn't look back and say, oh my God, how did this happen? I'm not an infant anymore. It just was the natural progression of things. So you already have a history and a strategy of successfully changing who you are. The problem with trauma is it's such an incredible shock. And it's such a freeze frame of a moment where we feel so powerless that we forget that we are organisms designed for change. And in fact, you have changed a lot already since your trauma, in good and not so good ways. So the first thing to remember is that change is easy. It's easy. After trauma, we have the tendency to think, I've changed and I'm always going to be this way. It's ridiculous. But that's sort of the trauma kind of thinking I was talking about earlier. You've changed, and your whole life and your whole body has been built to change all the time. But after trauma, and I'll just use myself, throw myself under the bus. After that trauma, I was like, I'm worthless. I'm always going to be worthless. I'll never deserve to be alive. Really? Really? I had changed from someone who was worthwhile and worthy just because I was, into this disaster of a human being. And I was really determined to believe that I was going to be that the rest of my life. As if trauma takes away our ability to change, which it doesn't. The brain has shown its remarkable capacity to change during trauma and after. So the first thing to remember, and I mean, I want to get all nerdy, so just know I'm holding myself back when I tell you the brain literally changes during a trauma and literally changes again. We have the evidence, we have the scans that show that it changes again in healing. So if your brain can change during recovery, everything can change. So number one is getting clear on that you have the capability to change. That is not as easy as it sounds, because change is scary, change is unfamiliar. Your brain is not going to want to change the conscious part of it because you've gotten very comfortable in your trauma language, your trauma perspective, your trauma identity, and it's not going to feel comfortable to let that go. So I'll just tell you that right now, but it is possible to do it. So the first thing to do is to start getting comfortable with the idea of that it is possible for you to change. That's number one.
Yeah.
And understanding in there, and here's the bridge to number two, understanding in there that it is totally normal to look at who you used to be and try to get back there. Right. And you can just stop that right now, because it will never happen. You cannot go back to who you were yesterday, much less 2 years ago. So then, okay, we realize, I can't get back to who that was. Then we say, okay, well, what am I doing in the present? And we look at ourselves and we say, oh my God, it sucks. I hate who I am in the present. I hate who this has made me be. This person who can't handle money, this person who keeps spending money even though I shouldn't, which is often a habitual response to some kind of need for safety, some kind of need for validation. Lisa, that was for you. And then we look at who we are in the present. We say, I hate this. I can't go back to that. And I have no clue who I'm supposed to become. That's the dilemma, right? So if number one was accept that you can have change, and number two is the bridge of understanding the three different identity perspectives, then you land on number two, which is figuring out you don't have to see the future. You just have to feel into, well, who would you rather be? That sounds really easy, but it's very hard to say I would really like to be wealthy. Try it. Write into the comments, I want to be wealthy. Not as like the woo-woo, I want to be wealthy. Yeah. I mean, really type it slowly and see how it feels in your body to say that. Because some of you, it'll feel amazing, and some of you, it will not feel good. Because just the thought will start to activate those traumatic neural pathways that need to be cleaned up. So it's starting to get clear on who would you rather be. If not who you are today, who would you rather be? Yeah. And it's this process of really laying out how you're going to identify that and then create your own individualized program for creating that. That's what we're doing in the masterclass.
All right. I want that. Oh my God, I want that. Yeah, they're all responding.
Right?
So,
right? Somebody wrote, I sense fear. That's right.
When my experts drop, like, this is what we're going to be doing in the masterclass, I'm the first one. Like, I want to stop and type, but I get distracted. Like, I want that. I want that. Everything you just said makes so much sense to me. And I don't know about you guys, but I love when things make sense. When I've been confused and struggling and can't figure it out, I'm trying so hard and doing all this, and like nothing is working. I'm not getting the results I want. Meanwhile, I can see everybody else clearly knows something I don't know. They're doing something. What is it that I'm missing? And then I hear something that makes sense. I'm like, that makes perfect sense. I want that. So I want you guys, like, do you want to be in Michelle's masterclass when we do it in our program? Let me know. I want Michelle's masterclass. Let us know. Let Michelle know. After all this that she just dropped, crazy. Oh my gosh. So listen, you guys, I can see from the comments. Shamna, I want that. I want that. I want that. I love it. I want that. I really do. I value Michelle's wisdom in this area. I can talk to you about money. I can show you how to manifest it. I can show you every tool on the planet. And I also know with all my heart that the value that she adds with her expertise on trauma and how that can stop you is invaluable to the work that we do, which is why I have her coming on and being one of the experts in our program. So if you know you've been watching these 3 days, you know you need this. This now is making a lot of sense to you. You're having a lot of understanding. Book a call. Let me just tell you, Diane and I haven't even been able to talk to each other today because we're inundated with calls. We're signing people up rapid fire. We're not going to be able to serve everyone. So you want to make sure helpmegetrich.com. Go book your time. We opened up more spots. Go book your time. You want to be in on these incredible masters that are out there. I mean, where can you get all of this in one to support you with money? That's the brilliance of having everyone come together. I also want to ask you to go follow Michele on Facebook, Michele Rosenthal. I've tagged her, I think, in the description, and you can see her name there, because the work that she does is just invaluable, you know, and we're talking about trauma with money, but there's trauma with lots of other things, right? So I want you to know, if you value my opinion, I mad respect the work that Michele does. I really do. Oh my gosh, they're like, you're brilliant and you're an angel.
Oh, look, we're all in this together. I see all of us, like, you know how elephants walk along and they each hold the tail of the elephant in front of them?
Yes.
That's how I see us.
Oh, I love it.
We all just walk along holding on to the person who's 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
I've had those people in my own life. I mean, I didn't get here by myself. I mean, those 11 different modalities that I used to get here, and the hours and hours of studying on my own, and everything that I had to struggle to figure out. There's value in the struggle, but you don't want to live in the struggle.
Right.
And I think we all sometimes forget that.
And that's what I want to give you right now, is the hope of, listen, watching these 3 days, hearing from these experts, kind of seeing where you are with money and understanding why, you know, you have a choice right now. You can continue going and make it take you longer. You know, I'm pretty certain you could get there on your own, right? But I know something for sure. It's going to take you long. It's going to be really difficult. You're going to struggle and suffer. And it's just going to be, that's just it. But you will eventually get there. And that is one of the choices. And you know what? If you're okay with that, that's good. What we're doing is saying, look, we already did it. I already suffered. I've already struggled. I've already invested over $200,000 in mentorship and coaching. I've read all the books, and forget, you know, like, I have all the knowledge, and that's amazing, but I live it. And that's what I stand on. I live this work. That's how I changed my life, is I actually put it in practice, and I changed my life, my financial reality, my everything. And that's what I want for you guys. So, all right, let's go. Help me get rich. Let's talk. Book yourself some time. Get on our calendar. Let's get you in our program. Let's get you squared away and sorted with all of this. And you get Michele as part of signing up with us. All right?
And you get each other. And you get Tasha. Tasha, I just, before we hop off, I just want to thank you. A big shout out to you for leading the way here. Somebody wrote in the comments, Tasha is the elephant in front of me. Oh. I loved it. I loved it. So I just want to thank you for leading the way in the beautiful, elegant, and graceful and meaningful way that you do. You know, there are a lot of programs, but you get behind the curtain of some of the other programs, and there's not a lot of substance. And there's not a lot of authenticity. And I've been behind the curtain of you, and there is so much substance and so much authenticity. And so I just want to thank you for creating this great forum, for talking about something that really needs to be spoken, and we don't talk about it enough. So thank you.
I receive.
It's coming through. It's coming through. I'm sending it. I'm sending you a virus-free hug.
Oh, there we go. I love it.
And I want to thank all of the people who are here with us tonight. Your comments have been amazing. Thank you for the love that you've sent me. Thank you for bringing it and for being real with us. And I wish and hope to see you on the journey.
Yes, yes, yes. Help me get rich. Let's talk. Helpmegetrich.com. Thank you, Dale, for typing that. You're amazing. And everyone else. And everybody saying thank you, Michele. And thank you. I appreciate you. Go have an amazing night. I love you guys. And we'll see you tomorrow with $800,000 to spend. What are you going to spend it on? What are we going to tell you to do? Wake up tomorrow morning and get your money. Mwah. I love you guys. Thanks, Michele. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.